Thank you so much for staying on KBC Channel 1. My name is Safina Ching, and we begin now the family matters. Like we said when we were starting the show, today we focus on the girl child. We know that this week, actually on 11th of October, that is on Wednesday, there is going to be that very important day that we celebrate and actually highlight some of the issues that are affecting the girl child in the world. And today in studio, that informs the conversation that we are going to be having in preparation for that particular day, as we get to understand how does it feel to be in the shoe of that girl child that is around you, that girl child between the age of 10 to 19. What are some of the issues she's battling with? What are some of the privileges that she has? What are some of the things that she ought to celebrate? Have we provided as a society an environment where the girl child can grow and celebrate and appreciate being a girl? These are some of the issues that we will be talking about, looking at the numbers. 6 million girls in the world globally, actually between the ages of 10 to 19, a population that has so much potential enough to change this world, potential enough to give us a lot of creativity and talent that we can bank on to bring a lot of development in our countries. But this is not felt because we have left our girls to battle with a lot of challenges that are thwarting their efforts to be people of influence in the society. Things like early marriage, things like early pregnancies, things like backward cultures like FGM, lack of education, lack of leadership chances. And these are issues that are actually blocking us as a society from benefiting from this huge population of girls that if only we took time to invest in, then we could benefit from, and we could just have a great impact that they can be able to offer us. So today, we want to talk about some of these issues that inform the conversation that ought to be had when we are talking about the challenges that girls face and the rights that we need to give girls and the places of girls in the society as we prepare for the International Day of the Girl Child. And some of you would like to call it the Day of the Girl, that was slated by the United Nations to be marked every 11th of October every year. It's an annual event, and so far we will be interested to find out from my panel this morning, so far since 2012 when this day was actually set aside, have we made progress, or do we still talk about the same old issues that are affecting girls? But before I introduce my guest this morning, let me allow you to be also a part of this program. At Safina_Cheng is my Twitter handle. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. Please let me know what you have to say concerning the girl child in Kenya, the girl child in Africa. What are some of the challenges that you feel as a society we need to be very sensitive to, we need to address? Please do that. The hashtag remains Good Morning Kenya. And right about now, let me introduce my panel for the show this morning. It's a panel of two, a gentleman and a lady. Sitting right next to me is Madame Mercy Chege, who is the manager of child protection from Plan International. And then joining us as well, we are very humbled to be joined by the country director of Plan International, Mr. Leonard Reyniers. I hope I got that right.
Yes, you did.
Thank you so much for joining me this morning. So we are talking about the Day of the Girl Child. Probably the most basic place to start this conversation. Let me start with the lady, because it's actually a day that touches mostly on the women in Kenya and in Africa and in the globe. Tell me, do we have a reason, to celebrate as girls, as women? Is there something that we have a reason to celebrate as we mark 11th of October?
I think we have many reasons to celebrate, and I can say that in the last few years we have made a lot of progress as far as giving opportunities to girls is concerned. Globally and also as a country, I think we haven't done so badly. I'm thinking about the Sustainable Development Goals. There's still a lot that the girls can achieve from there. We can achieve for the girls in the Sustainable Development Goals. And as a country, I think we have also done very well. If you think about the family law that now allows girls to be part of the inheritance, which was not there before. You think about the friendly environment in school, the distribution of pads in schools to keep girls in school. I think there's a lot that we can say has gone well for the girl child. Though we are still a long way from where we need to be, but I think we have a reason to be happy for the girls.
Okay, and we'll in the course of this program we look at that gap. Yes. We are somewhere, but we are far from where we ought to be. So we'll address that gap and how we can be able to bridge it. But then, Leonard, tell me, this day what does it mean to you? What is the significance as from where you sit? How would you describe it?
Yeah, so this day is it's a day that the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted. It's been around since October 11, which is the date when we have this day, since 2012. And Plan was quite instrumental in ensuring that we had this day being an International Day of the Girl Child within the United Nations framework. So one of our member countries, Plan Canada, were doing a petition with Canadians to try to influence the Parliament to lobby for a day, an International Day of the Girl Child. So with a lot of support from the Canadian public, they managed to influence their own parliamentarians, which in turn led to a decision that we want to have an International Day of the Girl Child. And that in turn was then brought forward towards the UN system with the different state parties, the different countries who decided to support it. It was quite quick, I would say, for an International Day to be adopted. It took about 2.5 years. So in December 2011, the UN General Assembly decided that we will have this day. And we're very happy about that because we are an agency that works with children's rights, but we specifically look at the issues around girls' rights and gender equality.
It's good that you've given us that, background, so that we get to understand that there was a process and there was a reason that this particular day was set aside. So, if I may just ask you a follow-up question on that, what is the essence really? One would ask, there is a lot of efforts being done to help the girl child. There's a lot of campaigns already, a lot of talks about girls and women. So why have that particular day? We have the International Women's Day, we have the Mother's Day, and all those other days that celebrate women. So why that particular day? What do you think are some of the issues that informed your organization to actually lobby a group that would see to it that the UN adopted that particular proposal?
Right, so as Plan International, we work in almost 60 countries in Latin America, Africa and Asia, as well as in the Western Hemisphere with another additional 20 countries. So all our experiences, because we're an organization which is now more than 8 years old, and in Kenya we've been around since the 1980s, what we see now in terms of children's rights is that there's a non-fulfillment and violation of children's rights across the globe in all countries. But within that, we see that there are specific violations and non-fulfillments that relate to girls' rights to a greater extent compared to boys. That doesn't mean that we pay attention to boys' specific situations at times. In different contexts, boys could be more affected by these rights violations or non-fulfillment. But on the whole, girls are more affected. So that's why we are trying to work with a specific focus on girls' rights.
Okay, is there a day for the boy child? Somebody asked me that before we started the show. So is there an international day for the boys?
No, there isn't.
Why?
No. So yes, that's a very important question, and I know it comes a lot, but recognizing that boys in general will have less right violations being affected to them than girls, we have to pay that special attention to girls, and that's why we would institute a special day for them. And it's not just a day, because it's a continuous work. It's 365 days per year. But I think boys' issues will be given attention in the context where we find them. So it's not that we are discriminating against boys when we promote the issues around the girl child.
You start the priority area now. For now is the girls, right? But then maybe in future it would be important to have the International Day of the Boy, because with a lot of activism and gender equality and a lot of debates going around and girls being empowered and women becoming so powerful and aggressive, there will come a time when it will be important. True. So let's also focus on issues now that are affecting girls, even as we prepare for that particular day, Mercy. Look at the girl, and in this particular context, we are talking about age 10 to 19. Look at that girl who is in Kenya. Look at that girl in the marginalized communities, for example. What would you say are some of those key issues that we need to focus on?
I think in Kenya we need to focus on the issue of FGM. I think it's practiced more widely than we imagine. And very many girls are affected. So if we were to deal with the issue of FGM and make sure that the girls have an opportunity to stay in school until they are 18, I think that would be one of the issues that can give us a lot of mileage in taking care of the girl child, making sure that they are protected. If we look at our cultures also, there's a lot that goes against the girl child. For example, the burden of care in our society is on women. If there's a sick person, if there's a sick child, if there's a sick parent, it's about the women taking care of that person. In the event that the female caregiver is not able to do that, you will find, oh, it is too much for them. You find the girl child being withdrawn from school to help in the burden of care. And that keeps them away from school. It affects their grades in school. It affects their graduation from one stage in school to the other, and also from one level of school to the other. So in the end, you find that some of the girls, and especially in the rural communities, you find that the girls do not have the opportunity to excel as much as they should. And you find a very brilliant girl dropping out of school, and nobody will take care of that until now they get married, they become women, they become mothers. Eventually, some of them get divorced because the men would want to move on to somebody probably who is more educated. And when it comes to contribution to economic empowerment in the society, they do not contribute much. So that cycle of poverty and disempowerment of women continues because of the culture, some of our cultures. Then you realize that, like, the issue of FGM, it doesn't affect men. It only affects the girls. And in some communities, the girls will go through FGM so that they can get married. So at the age of 5, 6, 7 years,
it's actually a qualification in some communities. If you're not, you've not undergone, the right, you cannot get married.
Exactly.
You're not a wife material.
And immediately after you go through FGM, everybody sees you as a mature woman. You're ready for childbirth. You're ready to become somebody's wife. So at the age of 9, 10 years, you find girls going through FGM. 10, 11 years, they are already engaged. 12 years, they are married off. So by the time they are 18, they have 3, 4, 5 kids, and they are unable now to progress in either economic contribution of the family, and therefore their children also do not get an opportunity to go to school. So it just perpetuates a cycle of disempowerment of women because the girl is not empowered. So those are some of the issues. And then the issue of access to schools. In some communities, you find that the schools are so far away. And on the way to school, the girls are not safe. And that's why they get the boda riders to give them a ride to school, and also probably to, free of charge, because of course they don't have that money. Eventually they become friends, and before they even finish primary school, they are married off. So that is another issue. That's another emerging trend, that the schools are so far and the girls are not safe in school.
Okay. Taking you back to the issue of FGM, there are certain issues that are affecting girls that we've talked about for year in, year out. There's a lot that has been done, a lot of investment that has been done to fight such vices. Probably from where you sit, why do you think we're still having the same conversations over and over again? Issues to do with FGM, early marriage, early pregnancies. Every year, this becomes part of the conversation. Where is the gap?
One interesting conversation that is going on is that we have, through the enactment of the laws, we have criminalized cultures, and people are protesting against that. You remember that demonstration that was in Kajiado, and it was led by women saying that our girls have to go through FGM. Because for them, this is a culture, it has gone on for generations. Why are you telling us now that it is illegal and it is criminal? So probably taking a different angle and getting the buy-in from the society, telling them it is not criminal, but it is not fair that a girl is denied the opportunity. And therefore, we are bringing in these laws to make sure that these girls can be able to progress in school. And we do not want to criminalize your culture. We are just criminalizing the fact that it is discriminatory to the women. So if you get the buy-in from the society, we shall be able to implement the law. But for as long as the society that practices that culture does not understand why it is criminal, then we will not win the war. So I think when we were going about the development of the law, we may not have consulted from the grassroots. The Morans who believe that their women have to be, they have to be circumcised. You have the elders who believe that this is really important for us as a preservation of our culture, that the women go through FGM. And it is not actually FGM. It's a rite of passage for them. We are the ones who say that we say that it is genital mutilation. For them, it is something very different.
It is okay, and it's a normal. In fact, even the women are part of it. The women demand for it.
They are
because
the
they've
advocates.
grown, and for them it's actually just a part of life, and they don't see anything wrong with it.
Exactly.
And then I don't know if you've also come across, there is a trend that is currently coming up with the issue of FGM. I understand that certain cultures have, because of a lot of efforts that have been done to fight this, they're actually doing it in a very different way. Such that as opposed to the age where, you know, a girl of age 12 or 10, you know, undergoes the rite, now it's a baby who undergoes that particular rite, and there is no celebration or ceremony to show that a girl in a particular homestead has undergone FGM. Just one of the ways to hide it and make it an underground sort of thing. Have you heard about this? And probably would you share with us some emerging trends that you've also, you know, witnessed?
Yeah, there's some emerging trends in the fight against FGM. It has become harder to fight FGM because the communities are now becoming clever in an effort to preserve their own culture. So you have girls now going through FGM. In fact, 5 years is very old. Some of them are going through FGM when they're still in their diapers. So you will they'll never know what happened to them, and nobody will ever tell them what happened to them. Probably as they grow up and they go to high school, then they realize that probably there's a difference, or by the time they are getting married. So that is one of them. Now the babies are the ones who are going through the cut. The other one is that there is no community celebration of FGM. And if there's a party, like in one of the areas where we work in Tharaka, there's one family that said, we're having a birthday party. So the girl just goes through FGM, and as she's in the bedroom recovering, people come and have her birthday. So it's very difficult. And then the medicalization, they are taking the girls to the hospital under anesthesia so that it's not even painful. So they just go through the cut, and then after that, after 3 days, they are out and they have recovered and they are playing with their peers. So there are all those trends. And then there is also the trend of married women going through FGM at childbirth. So all those things are making it very difficult to fight FGM. And it is communities that are bent on preserving their culture. That's why I was saying, can we work with the communities? Even the girls themselves, they are demanding to go through FGM, because in communities that practice FGM, the girls whose parents probably say you don't have to go through it, at some point they give in to peer pressure. And there was a newspaper item where a girl who was actually married went through FGM. Unfortunately, she was arrested in the process because it is criminal. So she does not understand why she can't go through FGM because it's
I get your the strategy you're proposing. Make it more of a pull approach, like the society understands the negative effects, and then they themselves are part of the process to fight these vices, not a push, trying to force them to stop these, backward cultures. They may not be part of the solution. Let me come to you, sir. Probably let's, focus on early marriage and teenage pregnancies. You're sharing with me earlier that we could just think that it's a problem here in Kenya, but even in the Western world, it's actually a challenge that ought to be, looked at in a very, massive way. Tell me about your concerns with the issue of, early marriage. What are the numbers? What are some of the issues that you feel have led to this, growth of a lot of young girls getting married before even they get to the age of 18?
Yes, in Kenya, I think there's about 25% of girls below 18 years old who are ending up being married off. And this figure might differ depending on the cultures and the part of the country. And across the globe, also Africa, but also other parts of the world, we see figures that range from maybe 10% up to 50% of girls that are married off before they are 18. So the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, is clear that children should not marry before the age of 18, which is both girls and boys, but we know that practices and cultures have been enabling this in certain situations. So, and we think it's a detriment, most often to girls, at times also to boys, in terms of them being pulled out of school, of early pregnancies and the effects that you mentioned. At times it's also not an issue solely of the child marriage. It could also be the girl engaging in early sexual entry and getting pregnant and being pulled out of school and having an issue coming back, being rejected by the family, basically being ostracized. So within Plan we try to work giving girls a second chance to, even though now they have a pregnancy, they have maybe born a child, to go back to school and being able to go on with their life career in terms of getting a skill and being able to cater for their child. So the issue is very important. It's very rampant across the world. So I think it's important to understand it's not necessarily an African issue. And I think it depends at times on the lack of services and information for both girls and boys in relation to building their relationships and in terms of sexuality and reproductive health. We don't have enough of that type of services for young people, for adolescent children.
Yeah, true. In the Western world, they're actually doing a lot of advocacy to make sure that even teenagers can access, contraceptives, which is still a tricky topic in Africa, in Kenya. It's still a topic that most people have not really embraced and are still asking, why would we give our young ones contraceptives? Will this add on to the problem? But probably that could be an issue for another day. But then why are we talking about so much huge numbers? Of course, we've all agreed here on this set that there is a problem. You say 25% of girls are married before they are 18. That is in Kenya alone. Why do we have so many people taking advantage of young girls? Why are young brides so attractive when there are so many women that you can marry from? Yeah.
Very difficult question.
Yeah, I mean,
Very difficult
it's
question.
not, yeah.
But I think, I'm not very sure why, but our girls are maturing very early. And if you look at a girl in class 8, dressed in a business suit, you would think that they're actually
grown-ups.
They are grown up and they are working. And not to say that our girls are not also innocent. I think the age of the sexual debut is so low now. At the age of 9, 10 years old, our children know so much. They want to engage in sex and they want to have boyfriends and they want to. That's a kind of a society that we have become. A lot of influence from the internet and not being able to draw the boundaries on what is good for them and what is not good for them, what they can do now, what they can wait. So I can say the girls have matured very early. Our boys have also matured very early. And there is also a parenting issue. I don't think we have as much time with our kids as we should to tell them that there is an advantage for you to wait until you're 20 so that you can get married. And they don't see that. So the more the more the gap between the parents and the children grow, the more we lose connection, the more our children lose that guidance, and they want to grow up and become adults because basically at home they are alone and they are doing their own thing with maybe a house help who is so busy and who does not want to interfere with the social life. So I would say that kids are growing up so fast, they know more than they should at the wrong age, and therefore they are entering marriage so early. In the rural areas, of course, it is even the issue of poverty.
Yeah, I was coming to that also, to look at how poverty relates to these huge numbers of girls getting married before their time.
Exactly.
Yeah, because the figures that we are given by the United Nations, if I may just take you through that, when it comes to child marriage, they say that in developing countries, actually the situation is worse. Globally, 1 in 17 adolescent girls between age 15 and 19 are married or are in a union. So not just being married, but in a union. Either you have a boyfriend or a sugar daddy. So that is captured there. And also in this particular problem is actually worse in developing countries, with 1 in every 3 girls being married before the age of 18. So looking at developing countries, the unique characteristic would be that these are countries that are still struggling economically. Talk to us about the relationship between the two and how we can be able to bridge that particular gap.
Yeah, from our experience as a country program, we have had to battle with the issue of girls befriending men, especially border riders, for pads. And I'm so happy about the pads distribution program with the Ministry of Education, because that might just see a bit of reduction on the vulnerability of the girls. Then, like during emergencies, we had experiences in some of the areas where we are working that for a jerrycan of water, a girl had to sleep with some man who can be able to draw water for them, or even give them water that they have fetched, because they can't pay for it. So even in situations of emergency, girls become even more vulnerable. And they are, in cases of poverty, you find that girls will drop out of school to earn that extra income that is needed at the family level. So those are some of the things that are making the girls more vulnerable. The fact that at the household level, they can't afford to place a meal on the table. So as many hands as possible are needed to put food on the table. And that makes the girls very vulnerable. If you go to costs, you know, the commercial sexual exploitation of children, sometimes it is done with the knowledge of the parents because they need that extra income. So a girl will drop out of school because of the high tourism season, and then they'll go back to school after that season is over. So that is happening a lot in the coast. Yeah.
And the girls who also get married, they come from poor backgrounds. They get married as a solution to their poverty. Getting married to a rich man, you know, probably who has made it, for you to be able to be a solution to your family. That is also a situation that needs to be looked into. But then if I may come to you, Lynette, share with me how you think we can achieve, you know, a level of economic empowerment to make this a thing of the past. What are some of the policies and strategies that you've been able to do so that you make sure that girls are empowered economically? Because you're talking about a huge population of girls, and if we leave them at the mercy of things like poverty, like backward cultures, like, you know, early pregnancies, this is a population we are going to lose, a population that we can really benefit from to develop our globe.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually corresponding with some colleagues yesterday in terms of the issue of economic empowerment for girls and women. And what I personally concluded was that we need to have integrated solutions, because actually the world is very complex and there are many factors that will be impacting on a girl child in terms of her opportunities and the type of challenges she's facing. So one thing, of course, is poverty, but the other one could be the culture in which the girl is living. The third one is about the gender inequality that are part of cultures and people's practice. So there are many factors that we have to work with at the same time. If we focus exclusively on one of them, the risk is that we make an isolated intervention. We have some impact, but not sufficiently. And of course, girls' empowerment, their ability to being able to believe in themselves because they are a human being, not because of their gender or anything like that, but they have the equal potential and the equal talent as men and boys have in society. That's something we want to inculcate in the thinking of young girls, as well as women and men and young boys that could support that process.
How can we achieve that self-awareness, for girls to know that they carry this potential, for parents to know that it's not wrong to have a girl child? Like in India, I heard that there is a law that was passed to prevent women from knowing the gender of their children before they give birth. The reason for this was that as soon as women discovered that what they are carrying is a girl, they would abort, because their having a girl is actually not a very good thing. So how can we achieve that level of self-awareness, for girls to appreciate being a girl, for parents to appreciate having a girl child? How can we achieve that? You're talking about awareness. Practically, how do we go about that? Because we all wait for 11th of October to have these conversations. But then what can we do on a day-to-day basis to have more of these conversations, to have actions that go beyond talk?
Yeah, so I believe it really comes down to giving people enablers to discuss these type of issues at the family level and at the community level, to bring it down to the people. Of course, we also have important things like policy making and legislation and an International Day of the Girl Child. Those are important steps to promote the process nationally or even globally. But if you want to see change, it comes down to people actually starting to understand that there are other ways in which we could develop our societies, and how we could look at the individuals within the societies, and how we could actually avoid stereotyping along gender lines, because it's actually detrimental. And I mean, I think it's a human right. That's what we say in Plan International. It's a human right, so it's something that is universal. But even if you want to say, will it benefit our society? It will. Investing in girls' education, ensuring that girls are not married out at an early age below 18 will actually benefit a country's economy, and you will progress as a country and as a society. So we see through different type of research that it's also beneficial to others. But back again, it's a human right for the girl child, and that's what we stand for.
It's about the people as well, what I've captured from what you're sharing with me. And the people is me and you who is watching, because it's, if we wait for the stakeholders and the policymakers to do this, then we'll never make progress. We'll make progress, yes, but very slowly and gradually. But if we take it upon ourselves wherever we are to appreciate the girls next to us and to be able to be advocates for this sort of information, then we can change the world very fast, because girls are everywhere. And in fact, they say that in hospital, out of 10 babies who are born yesternight, you know, about 8 or so are girls. So girls are everywhere, such a huge population that needs to be, you know, addressed. Let me come to you, and Mercy, tell me, are there any specific programs or specific strategies that you've seen being done to address these unique challenges affecting girls that you can say have borne fruit, things that we need to maintain and sustain going forward?
Yes, there are very many things that we are doing as Plan International and also other organizations. For example, in our project in Kajiado, we have managed to convince some husbands to let their girls, to give us their girls for 3 months, or their wives for 3 months. Those who have babies below 6 months will come with their babies. And we have invested in taking them into vocational training. They've chosen what they want to do. Some want to do tailoring, some want to do beadwork, some want to do hairdressing. And it is the traditional hairdressing, so we'll address that at, you know, something that they can actually make use of when they go back home. But I think for us that is a milestone. We have had 1 year of meetings with the men and the husbands, and we told them why they would be better off with educated women and women who are contributing to the household economy than just sitting down and waiting for them to go out with the cows and then come back as the sole source of livelihood for the family. So I think that one for us is a milestone, and that's why I go back. Let's work with the communities. That is something that we can say we have succeeded in. In other areas, like where we have projects in ending child marriage, we have encouraged parents whose girls have gotten married and then they have been divorced or they are home with the children to allow us to take them to vocational training, and that has also worked. How it works is that the guardian has to be ready to stay with the baby during the day as the girl goes for internship or for the vocational training, and then comes back in the evening. And it's the same message. An empowered girl is better off than a girl who sits down and waits for somebody to bring food in the evening. That contribution will enhance the household economy and will also ensure that the next generation of children do not have to go through the same thing. So I think that's something else. In Tharaka, we have made major milestones where we are working with the Jurinjeke as our key advocates against FGM.
So you have to seep into the community.
You have to work with
There is no other way.
There's no other way.
True.
Yeah, so like in Tharaka, the Jurinjeke have become our greatest advocates against FGM, and we use them to go during the public barazas, like during the chiefs barazas. We ask that they are given an opportunity to talk to the community and say, as the custodians of the tradition among the people of Tharaka, we don't think that FGM is the right thing, and we think that girls belong in school together with the boys. Then we are working with the boys to make sure that they can make a commitment. If these girls do not go through the cut, they can still become our wives, because that is the greatest fear of the women and the girls in some of those communities, that if we don't go through the cut, then we'll not get someone to marry us. So we are making the boys know that there is nothing wrong with getting married to a girl who has not gone through the cut. If anything, if they stay in school, you bring your 5 shillings, I bring my 5 shillings, our household is better because you can contribute, the girl can contribute and the man can also contribute. So just, working with the community and making sure that we are empowering the girls. Life skills training is very important. because we want the girls to be sure of themselves. And when they say no, they know that they are doing the right thing for themselves. We don't want them to be 50-50. Am I doing the right thing or am I not doing the right thing? So we empower the girls to say no to the cat. And if they can run away, they can run away. We work with the chiefs, and the sub-chiefs right at the community level so that they can monitor the households. December is a very tricky month for us because we are like, Chief, make sure that no FGM happens in your area, and the police have to be on standby to support that. So working with the government agencies that enforce the law, working with the community, most of them to become whistleblowers, and especially working with the circumcisers themselves. We have 3 reformed circumcisers, and they are spreading the word that this is not the only source of livelihood. We can go to the farm, we can do beadwork, we can, anything, but we don't have to earn our living by circumcising girls.
Yeah.
So it's an all-round approach.
I see what you're doing, and they say that we could be resistant to change, but then if it is explained in a language that we understand, in a way that we see we can implement, then probably people may have a second thought and change their ways. And you've also captured the issue of including men in this particular process, because if it's all about talking about the rights of the girl and the women, and the men are left out of this conversation, at the end of the day, who do you go back to? You go back to the same men. If they don't understand the need to have these challenges, to have these rights championed, then it's like you're all working in different directions. So it's always good to work with the community and the men to make sure that all works well. I'm told we're just about to wrap up, but then we have tomorrow, then Wednesday actually is the D-Day. What should we expect going forward? What are some of the things that wherever people are watching us from in their little corner of this country, what can they be able to do as part of being part of this particular important day? Lynette.
Well, like I said before, yes, it's a day. So, I think we can recognize improvements in terms of girls' rights and gender equality in Kenya and celebrate that, because it's positive to celebrate those achievements we are all making together. But I do think we also need to think that this is just that moment of time where we give it extra attention, but it actually requires attention every day of the year and onwards, because we know that things are not as they should be in terms of gender equality and girls' rights. So I would hope that people will be able to now listen to the issue, get information about it, and start to think differently, meaning that you take off your hat of stereotyping girls or boys and men and women, saying that this is what men do. Men don't cry, boys don't cry, actually. How often do we hear that?
You cry like a girl.
Yeah, so how can we avoid that? Because boys cry, I cry, I'm a man, so I think it's masculine or feminine to cry. It's natural as a human being, so we need to go beyond those stereotypes, because they're actually not helpful. If we think back, why would it make a difference? Why would we be different? Then I think we need to pinpoint that and say we are not, and it doesn't make sense. So we need to help each other to do that process. So the case you mentioned about India, where actually at times what we call infanticide, where a baby is prematurely aborted because on the basis of
gender,
of the sex of being a girl, that shows at times how the stereotypes are so strong in terms of favoring boys and not girls. I think that's one of the extremes, but it also shows us that this kind of process it's a long one, and we need to work together.
Even in Africa, people have been divorced for just giving birth to girls,
That's true.
It's not that you can't give birth. You have even at times 6 kids, but they're all girls, and you divorced because you do not have a son. A son is such a precious thing, which is good, but then again, why don't we celebrate both? It's God who gives people children, right?
That's true.
There is something you told me very unique about leadership and embracing girls and making them, be more aware that they can be leaders and better leaders. What are you doing, to make that practicable?
We have the Girls Takeover, and we want girls to experience, even if it's just for 2 hours or 1 hour, to be CEOs in certain companies or organizations. So tomorrow we'll be having 2 girls taking over the plan offices, the country office, that is Leonard's office. There'll be a girl who is going to be the CEO for about 2 hours. Then we have our regional office still in the same building, so the regional director will have someone sitting in his chair for some time.
And they get to perform
They
the
are
duties
actually
and
holding staff
responsibilities?
meetings.
Okay.
Yes.
Why that? What's the
Because
inspiration to that?
girls belong here. That's what we want to tell them, that they don't have to be secretaries and front office assistants. We need them in executive positions. So we want them to aspire to take over those positions.
Wow.
Not at the back where you are supporting
The PAs and the
PAs and all
secretaries.
that, but the CEOs. Yes, and then on Wednesday we have our climax where we are taking over communications authority. So you need to be very careful. You have a new CEO that day.
All right.
Yes.
But as long as it's a girl, I have no problem.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I know when we're having such conversations, we can talk all day, all night, because there's just a lot to cover. But today we are just focusing on the International Day of the Girl Child, and so much has been shared on this set. My parting shot, education actually could be such an important tool, because a girl who has gone to school is actually less likely to get married early as opposed to them that have not gone to school, because they spend so much time learning and empowering themselves, and by the time they think of marriage, at least they are better women, they're empowered, they can make better decisions and be better mothers because their age allows them to do that. So let's take our girls to school, let's support them in whatever endeavors they have, and let's appreciate being a girl. Actually, being a girl is not a bad thing, and somebody should not tell you that you cry like a girl. Yes, cry like a girl, because that is how you're supposed to cry, right? My name is Safina Ching. I'll see you tomorrow bright and early for another edition of Good Morning Kenya. On behalf of Martin Mwanje and Samuel Njoroge, who we were doing the show together, we want you to have a lovely day, and the entire production crew requests that you watch KBC Channel 1, because there is more that is coming your way.